Hello everyone, and welcome to Alahandria. So, wait, let me change my FOV. Alahandria is a magical world I created with two other friends, and we each have our own characters. Alucin, Mendian, and Larry. When I am talking about their real-life counterparts, I will be using their fictional character names, for obvious reasons. The magic is based off of colors, and each color is a different type of magic. The colors are maroon, red, orange, yellow, green, turquoise, blue, and purple. There's also another magic that's not really based on colors. It's called shadow magic, and it's kind of the enemy. So each color stands for something different. Maroon for destruction magic, red for damage magic, orange for construction magic, yellow for movement/mobility magic, green for control magic, turquoise for transformation magic, blue for protection magic, and purple for enhancement magic. Today I will be building the center of my world, which will be on this island of the map, which is called Lydia Isorian. So, in the center of the world, there's going to be a massive enchanted ring that holds a lot of magic and a lot of power. Yeah, that seems good. And in the enhanced ring, there will be 8 obelisks, one for each color. And each obelisk would be like huge and unbreakable, and they would hold a lot of that like certain magic. So if I had a damage magic obelisk here, that would mean it would have a lot of damage magic within it. So a person could come up to the obelisk and draw some of its magic, and they would get like an energy boost from it. So now I'm going to lay out the boxes where I'm going to put the obelisks in. As you know, there are going to be 8 obelisks. Each obelisk will be a 13 by 13. Like, I'm going to put 4 in a crosshair position and 4 in X position. As you can see me build this right now. So I am going to build the base of the obelisk now, where all of the energy is stored. So I'm going to start by building a frame for it, which is going to be like a square, like a helmet around the actual inner core part. This will protect the inner core. Now this is the inner core. It will be magical. It's where it's actually stored. Before finishing, I have to put on some decorations, some like curves, some spikes to make it actually look like an obelisk base instead of just a box. In order to not rebuild the same structure multiple times, I am going to be using the clone tool from Axiom to just place this around the circle. Now to actually make the obelisk towers, I'm going to just use clone and stack tools from Axiom to make an obelisk tower, then paste it around the whole circle. Now that I'm done making the base shape of these obelisks, I'm now going to build an alphabet of the enchantment language in Minecraft so that I can easily inscribe any word onto these obelisks. So there's A, and there's B, and there's C, and D, and E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. Now I know my ABCs, next time won't you sing with me? Now I have the alphabet built. This means I can build any word I want. So there's destruction, damage, construction, mobility, control, transformation, protection, and enchantment. Now to actually make these look like obelisks instead of just pillars, I am going to be placing down the actual blocks I will be using and using the replace command to swap out the blocks to the blocks I will be using. And I'm going to use the brushes from World Edit to paint over the obelisks to add color. So now I'm going to start building the actual ring that goes between each obelisk. First, I'm going to start by moving them all into the sky. Then I'm going to make a tough brick outline to contain the magical ring. Now is time for gradients. So here I've laid out my maroon to red gradient, my red to orange, my orange to yellow, yellow to green, green to cyan, cyan to blue, blue to purple, and purple back to maroon. When I am making these gradients, I start by making the lines of the colors I want. First, with some slight curves and bends to add variety. Then after, I start encroaching the color onto the other color's territory by adding some blocks here and there, which helps smoothen it out. And when I do this, I make sure to place it on corners, usually, to make a dithering effect, which is a pixel art type way to create different colors using your eyes ability to create colors when things are near each other. This helps blend the colors in better, creating a smoother gradient. On these you can see that I have glass over the gradient, which helps enrich the outer colors and helps blend the colors in near the center of the gradient. When I am making a gradient like this in a bird's eye viewish horizontal plane, I make sure to watch out for falling blocks like concrete powder and sand and gravel. These are blocks to watch out for because you do need a supporting block underneath them or else they will fall, and it makes blending the colors in together harder. As I am wrapping up with this, I am hoping that colors will nicely blend into each other, making continuous changing color, making it very colorful and nice. And with that all said and done, this is the ring. To start the inner circle, I'm going to build a staircase to add some depth. Now for the actual inner platform, I am thinking of a gradient, so I can use these circles to hold the base colors of my gradient. And for the actual gradient, I am going to be going from dark gray to black to a dark blue. To start, I'm going to fill in these rings with their respective blocks, which goes from deep slate bricks to mud to polished blackstone to polished blackstone bricks to cracked polished blackstone bricks to black concrete powder, and then ending with skulk in the middle. The reason I'm doing a gradient as a floor instead of just one plain color is because I want something to be there without anything sticking out of the ground like lamps or benches or bushes. I want this because the flat area will be able to draw your attention to the piece in the center that I will be making later, because that will be the main focal point of this build. Now because I'm almost done finishing up with the main blocks and the rings, I'm going to go around and remove the white wool rings and replace them with the two neighboring blocks beside it, so that there's a smooth gradient in between each color, and just to remove the rings so there's no border in between each color. Now it is time for the mandatory, annoying, and tedious dithering effect, which is the effect that actually makes it blend as a gradient, instead of just being lines of or rings of color. Now I'm going to talk about what's going to be in the center of all of this. In the center of all of this is going to be a portal to maybe a spirit dimension place. This portal is going to have the same design as the portal you get when you kill the Ender Dragon. And for the portal design, I am thinking of doing a fog effect. This works by stacking stained glass and putting air in between each stained glass. This separation allows the stained glass effect to stack, creating a fog effect. And as you can see over here, I already built the portal, and this is how the fog effect looks. And with that, I feel like this area looks complete. There's only one little problem, and it's that it's kind of floating and there's no terrain under it, so I think I better do that right now. To make the terrain, I am going to be using the Axiom's World Painter-esque feature. Using this, I can easily make the terrain. Look how smooth I can draw in this World Painter-esque feature. And this will be very easy to make the base terrain for the build. To make the terrain, I'm going to start by using Axiom's World tools like the rock tool and different brushes to create a base terrain and
a base thing off the ground out of grass blocks. Then I can go ahead and smooth on it to actually make it look better. And now I'm going to place some blocks between the terrain and the obelisk, so there's terrain there. I didn't use Axiom's tools to do this because I am afraid of Axiom's tools overriding the build I made and destroying it. Before finishing, I'm going to go over the terrain with the smooth tool to make it more smooth and less rigid. The terrain being here is quite nice, but the thing is it's quite barren and plain right now, so I'm going to need to build things like rocks, trees, and add some texture. So I'm going to start with the texturing. To texture the terrain, I'm going to use multiple world edit brushes with different blocks that are around the green color so that I can just quickly paint over my previous terrain with those brushes, creating light spots and dark spots to give some variation to the terrain. Now that there's some texture, it is time to create the rocks. So to create the rocks, I use Axiom to make big rock shapes and boulders out of stone, and then I use the replace command from World Edit to replace the stone with other stonish blocks like cobblestone, andesite, and also just stone. And then I went over it with some mossy cobblestone to add some texture and to make it look nice. I am thinking these boulders can help break up just the solid green and trees and help give some other naturey feels to the build. With a different color, having gray being it might have it feel nicer as a different outside type of color. And also, rocks and boulders are in the forest, and this is supposed to take place in a foresty area. I would have usually said now it's time to build the trees, but the problem is I don't really know how to build a tree, so, this is my first attempt at a tree. It's not the worst, it's not the best. I started with a stem, then add branches, then coated the branches with leaves, and after I did that, I went back over it and add more branches and more leaves. After that first tree, I'm building 5 more trees to add more variety to the amount of trees I have. I learned how to make these taller trees by watching an older green video, so I'll link that in the description. Simple way to build this is by building a tall stem with branches that become longer as you go lower down in the tree. And then you cover the branches up with spruce leaves, and then once you get higher, you can transition to birch leaves to add some texture. If you want, you can go and add some azalea leaves at the top to have the even lighter color. Reason to build these trees off to the side is so I can make multiple trees and then copy and paste these trees onto the build multiple times in different rotations and places to have a full forest. But these trees aren't going to be the full forest, they're just the taller ones. And these taller trees are meant to block the sight so you can't see the sky and around that easily, which will help focus your viewing to the structure in the center rather than everything around. These trees was actually one of the more time consuming things I had to do because I'm just not used to building a lot of trees. And as I went on and built more trees, it actually got faster. The first 2 took like 30 minutes, and then the last 3 took also 30 minutes. These trees aren't going to be the only trees, they're only the tall ones, like I said. There's going to be a lot of small trees and also bushes in the forest to add more vegetation and other things in the forest. I'm trying to keep these trees to around 20 to 30, 35 blocks tall, which will be high enough, I think. It'll block enough viewing, but not too tall that it will draw your eyes too much, and away from the main centerpiece of the build. Now it's time to build the regular trees and the smaller trees, which I actually feel like I'm better at building. So I'm building these regular trees now with normal-ish stems, full block size. Now I'm going to be building these twiggish type trees, which has a fence as the stem, which makes it thinner. And then don't forget just bushes for foliage.
Now it is time to start placing the trees.
To do this, I'm going to use the stamp tool from Axiom's World Painterish feature, and I'm going to put different blueprints I made of the trees into the stamp tool. So when I stamp over the island, I will be stamping all the different types of trees. First, I'm going to start with the large trees, and then I'm going to have to do some like normal block placing to make it look better because right now there are going to be some parts that are floating or not looking right and not foresty, not tree-like. And then I'm going to go over with the medium-sized trees. These trees will close in the space a bit more, making it a bit tighter of a forest. And then lastly, I'm going to do a thin trees, which will close in the excess space left. And then after that, just going to put in the bushes just real quickly. And then that's it. That's the forest complete. Now, with the terrain, the centerpiece, and the trees in the forest, this build, I can say, is finally complete. I'd like to thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the